Cinema Diverse is underway, and Myles Yaksich is here. He directed Albatross, which is screening on Friday, all happening at the Palm Springs Cultural Center. This film festival brings in a lot of young talent, and it brings in a lot of very important films that probably don't get as highlighted at other film festivals. Myles, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
First of all, tell me a little bit about Albatross.
Albatross is a feature-length film. It's a dramatic thriller. It's a dark, character-driven story which really explores identity.
So you said you wrote this during the pandemic, so this was your pandemic project?
Pretty much. I am based in Los Angeles, originally from Canada, and I went back to Canada thinking I'd be there for a couple weeks. Turned into 11 months, and during that time, got to writing, raising the financing, and putting together this film.
Now, is this your first feature-length film?
Yes, my directorial debut, feature-length. I've done a couple shorts in the past.
So, especially for a filmmaker like you, who this is your directorial debut, how important is it to get exposure at a film festival like Cinema Diverse?
Oh, absolutely. It's the best way to share the story with a wider audience, get a lot of different eyeballs on it, and hopefully word of mouth spreads and, raise more awareness for the project.
So tell me a little bit about how you approached this project. It wasn't just out of sheer boredom. You must have had the genesis of this idea before the pandemic hit.
Oh, totally. The themes, thematically, like I said, it explores identity, but sexuality, ethnicity, race relations, all in the 1950s. So these are topics that have been circling, the orbit. And kind of plot-wise is what really came down to having to make something that would be feasible to shoot during the pandemic, right? So we've got this kind of closed-off environment, a dinner party in the 50s, getting to know our 4 main cast. We've got 10 cast in total.
Okay, so that's a fairly sizable cast, but you're focusing on these 4 main characters. Yeah. So obviously you say very character-driven, and I assume that this is a kind of a dinner party where things get a little intense.
Totally. You might not want to stay for the whole thing once you get stuck at that table. And that was very much part of setting it in the 50s. Today, I feel like if you're in an environment you don't like, you're just going to leave. And I think during that time, it was like, what happens when you can't just leave? Okay,
so that was one of the reasons you set it in the 50s. Were there any other kind of the confines of the 1950s construct that appealed to you, obviously?
Totally. I really think that looking at past, setting stories in the past, I like period films, my shorts included, allow us to examine kind of current themes at a distant level that we might not feel it's so blatant, what we're trying to explore.
Don't feel like you're beating people over the head.
Exactly.
It's a little bit of a period piece exploring these topics, which were hot topics in the 50s and remain very important topics now.
Yes.
And sometimes still hard to talk about. So I think it's really good that people are still making these kinds of films where people will walk out and say, now we have to have this conversation.
And I think that's something that I've noticed, going to festivals. There's a lot of great questions at Q&As afterwards, and I think the film really is a conversation starter.
All right, Cinema Diverse is screening right now at the Palm Springs Cultural Center. And you can go to psculturalcenter.org. You'll find a link to Cinema Diverse. It will showcase all of the film screenings. What time are you screening on Friday?
5:15. And if you're not able to make it, you can also see the film on Apple TV, Amazon. So it's out there in the world as well.
Fantastic. That's great for you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on Eye on the Desert.
It was great to be here.